Misume Yushin is a high school student and a true introvert. He has no friends in his class. His hobbies include gaming on his mobile and working out. He often feels like a loner, as his classmates rarely talk to him. When they make plans, they never consider him. Despite this, he is not bullied. He simply has nothing in common with them. He packs his bag and leaves the classroom. Meanwhile, his classmates discuss going to karaoke and ask Nanami to join them. However, Nanami's friend declines the offer, mentioning they have an errand to run. This makes the classmates feel disappointed since 3 of them cannot come. As he walks away, he ponders how many event quests he can complete while they are at karaoke. On his way out, he realizes he left his pencil box in the classroom. He turns back to retrieve it. As he enters, he sees Nanami and her friends playing a card game. She has just lost. As a penalty, she must confess her feelings to a boy tomorrow and go out with him for a month. This news makes her blush with embarrassment. She begins to argue with her friends. Watching from a distance, he contemplates making a quick getaway with his pencil box if only he hadn't caught wind of such an intriguing conversation. Nanami sits on the desk, refusing to confess to anyone as punishment. He catches a glimpse of her bare legs, but shakes himself back to reality and walks toward the door. One of her friends teases her, suggesting she simply does not want to accept the game's penalty. But Nanami insists it is not that. She believes confession should be taken seriously and only made to someone truly loved. Her friend continues to tease her, pointing out that despite her stance, she has never had a boyfriend. She has received more confessions than anyone else, but has turned them all down. Nanami explains that most boys who confess to her are only interested in her looks. The other friend hugs her, saying it's a problem that she is not used to boys. Yushin, overhearing this, finds it hard to believe that she has never had a boyfriend. Nanami's friends express concern for her. They worry that if she continues this way, she might attract unwanted attention from strange boys. They suggest that she should get used to boys and even offer to help her practice dating. They believe that even if she breaks up with them, the boys will be happy just to have spent time with her. Yushin, still eavesdropping, thinks that the boys would be thrilled if they were unaware of her true feelings, but if they knew, they would be in for a world of hurt. He muses about Barado Nanami. She is a well-known girl, admired by many, but she has turned down countless boys. Anyone who manages to date her will attract a lot of envious glances. Just the thought of it sends shivers down his spine. He reaches for the door, hoping the girls will continue their conversation somewhere he cannot hear. Meanwhile, Nanami's friends continue to pressure her. With no other option, she reluctantly agrees to their plan. They tell her she must confess her feelings to Yushin, the quietest guy in class. She nods, but little do they know that the very person they are discussing is listening to their conversation. Nanami inquires about the best way to confess her feelings, and her friends cheekily propose the classic back-of-the-school confession scene, shoujo manga style. Later that night, Yushin sits at home, feeling confused about what to do. He decides to log into a game to talk it over with his online friends. Baron, one of his gaming buddies, listens as Yushin explains the situation. Baron advises him to accept the confession and go on a date with her. He believes that this way, Nanami can get used to boys, and he can learn to interact with girls. Yushin's friend Peach-san suddenly arrives, pouting as she disagrees with Baron. She urges Canyon-san, Yushin's in-game personality, to reject the confession. Baron calmly tries to soothe her. He explains that rejecting a popular girl could lead to problems. If he turns her down, he might face backlash from others at school. However, if he gets dumped, it won't cause any issues. Baron continues, suggesting that Yushin views this as an opportunity to make Nanami fall for him. Since it's a punishment game, he can break up with her once she develops feelings. Canyon notices that Baron is already ahead of the game, and Baron doesn't shy away from it, sheepishly urging him to inform him of the outcome. Yushin considers this and decides to accept her confession. The next morning, Nanami approaches Yushin and asks to talk after school. He agrees without hesitation. Afterward, she returns to her friend's table. Although he is a loner, Yushin knows a lot about her. He recognizes her fashion style as a gal type. She often leaves her shirt collar unbuttoned, exposing her cleavage. Nanami is also known for her unconditional acceptance of everyone around her. The reason they assume that Nanami loves them and the misunderstood men keeps growing every day. He fears that if he, an introverted guy, rejects her confession, many people will turn against him. He feels powerless as he has no authority in class and is unknown to his peers. He's embarrassed and unable to believe that she is inexperienced with men, and he finds her charming. He muses about her style and realizes he's also easily tempted by her. Finally, the class ends, and they meet behind the school building. She asks if he knows what she is about to say. Yushin responds with a playful line, claiming he has no idea, and jokingly adds that if she plans to take his money, he doesn't have any. Nanami, taken aback, shouts that she isn't after his money. After a deep breath, she blushes and begins to speak. Yushin starts blushing too, glancing at her legs, but remembers Baron's advice to look up during a confession. When he looks up, he notices a girl about to throw water out of the window. At that moment, Nanami finally confesses her feelings, but to his surprise, he instinctively grabs her, causing them both to tumble to the ground. As they process the situation, Nanami yells, but then realizes he saved her from getting wet. Unfortunately, a bucket of water falls on Yushin's head, knocking him unconscious. When he wakes up, he finds himself in the infirmary. Confused, he wonders why he is there. He recalls the panic of seeing the cleanup crew throwing water from above, and remembers something heavy falling on him afterward. Nanami beams with happiness when she sees that Yushin is finally awake. He thanks her for helping him and tries to sit up, but she gently insists he lay back down. Concerned, she asks if he is injured. He reassures her, saying he is all right, and she visibly relaxes at his words. When he asks about her condition, she replies that she is also doing well, all thanks to him. Feeling encouraged, he sits up in bed, but she shyly urges him to lie back down. Yushin suddenly realizes he isn't wearing his shirt, and he blushes deeply. He quickly apologizes and pulls the blanket over himself. As they engage in light chit-chat, the infirmary teacher arrives with a fresh uniform for Yushin. After he changes, the teacher informs him that Nanami has been taking care of him since he was brought in. She adds with a smile that it's nice to be young. Once they leave the infirmary, he thanks her again, but she responds by thanking him for keeping her safe, which makes him blush even more. Then she asks for an answer to the confession she made earlier. He suddenly remembers the confession but realizes he had rushed to her before he could respond. He looks into her eyes and accepts her feelings, addressing her formally, Barado-san. Her face lights up with joy at his acceptance. After realizing something, her expression shifts and she pouts, perplexing him. She then shyly mentions her given name, feeling embarrassed. Confused, he asks what she means. She explains that now that they are in a relationship, he should call her by her name, and she will call him Yushin. Although he feels uncomfortable using first names with girls, he decides to call her Nanami. They shake hands, promising to start their new relationship. Her smile is radiant, like a field of blooming flowers. Yushin wonders if he is misinterpreting her happiness, but he reminds himself that this is just a penalty from her game. The sensei observes them as they gladly shake hands, finally becoming a couple. She admires their youth and congratulates them. Upon laying eyes on her, they suddenly transform into a flustered bundle of embarrassment and nerves, releasing each other's grasp like a hot potato. She advises them to maintain a high school-appropriate relationship and reminds them to use protection if they decide to take that step. This makes Nanami blush deeply, while Yushin interrupts, asking the teacher what she means by that. He wonders if she should really be warning them about such things since they are still in high school. The teacher responds, explaining that it's precisely because they are in high school that they need proper education about relationships. After teasing them a bit more, she encourages them to leave if they feel okay now. As they walk home, he thinks it is unlikely that their relationship will progress too quickly since they'll only be dating for a month. The silence between them feels heady, and when their eyes meet, they both look away, too embarrassed to hold the gaze. Yushin feels uncertain about what to do when he is alone with a girl. He regrets not asking Baron for advice. Determined to break the silence, he tries to talk about the earlier incident, but Nanami remains quiet. This makes him wonder if she is just as nervous. Suddenly, she asks for his contact information and inquires about any apps he uses. He admits he doesn't use any apps but has them installed on his phone. When she asks why he doesn't use one, he explains that he follows official game accounts to get news and free items. Hearing this, she giggles, leaving him unsure if he said something wrong. The misunderstanding clears when he realizes she is happy to be his first contact. This thought makes him blush even more. She asks if he knows how to add a new contact, and despite never having done it, he successfully adds her information and sends her a greeting. He thought she might not want to exchange contact details at all since their confession was a dare, but her happiness during the exchange surprised him. Finally, they reach the train station and part ways as they live on opposite sides. They say goodbye, but Yushin notices a hint of sadness in her smile. He wonders if it's because the confession was just a dare. Once home, he goes online to talk with Baron and Peach about what happened. Baron laughs and compliments Yushin, clearly amused by the unexpected turn of events. He teasingly asks if Yushin is trying to become a superhero. He quickly denies it, explaining how awkward it was walking back together. He admits he didn't know what to say, realizing he should have asked Baron for help. Although he feels hesitant about relying on Baron, he still receives advice. Instead of focusing on himself, he should ask her about her interests. Yushin decides to start taking action tomorrow, but Peach quickly disagrees. She tells him there's no way things will go well and advises him to break up with her before he gets hurt. Baron steps in to calm Peach down and thinks of a new plan. He suggests that Yushin set a goal for the week. Baron tells him to aim to hold hands with her by the end of the week. Yushin feels worried since there are only 2 days left in the week. Baron encourages him to start by holding hands on their way to and from school. While they chat in the game, Yushin suddenly receives a message from Nanami. He is surprised to see a text from her on the first day of their relationship. Eagerly, he opens it and finds that she is inviting him to walk to school together tomorrow. She asks if he can meet her at the station at 7:30. Since this is his first time messaging her, he quickly reads it and feels he must reply. He types a response, saying he would be happy to walk with her. After sending the message, he wonders what she will think of his reply. Nanami reads his message and responds that she is looking forward to it. Yushin shares the news with Baron, who advises him to arrive at the meeting spot 30 minutes early. He insists that being early is much better than being late. Determined, Yushin decides to give it his all and plans to sleep early to prepare for tomorrow. He turns off his computer and stares at Nanami's message, thinking about how he will walk to school with his girlfriend. Now the story shifts to Nanami's perspective. She reflects that as long as the boy is gentle, her confession could have been to anyone. When she thinks about it this way, it sounds as if she is just a random girl confessing on the street. Nanami is Mitsumai Yushin's classmate. She has never accepted any confessions because the boys who confess to her only focus on her body. That is why she has rejected all of them. One day, after turning down another boy who acted like a creep, she walks downstairs and sees Mitsumai in the hallway, absorbed in his phone. Noticing his disinterest in others, she wishes the other boys were more like him. Her friends, worried about her anxiety around guys, suggested a dare to help her get used to them while keeping herself safe. That's why she had to confess to him and go out with him for a month. She ultimately decided to go through with it, but she realizes again that this decision felt like the lowest of lows. Still, she feels nervous. However, it isn't just her own nervousness that affects her. She is surprised that he looks into her eyes instead of focusing on her body. She understands that he is different from the other boys who have confessed to her. During the confession, he suddenly grabs her and pulls her to the ground. She misinterprets this action, thinking he might be just like the others. But her misunderstanding clears when she realizes he was trying to save her. After he gets hit by the bucket and passes out, she runs to get help immediately. When she finds out he is okay after receiving treatment, she feels a wave of relief. Once he wakes up, she thanks him and asks for an answer to her confession. Yushin feels even more embarrassed because he is looking into her eyes instead of at her body. He gladly accepts her confession. Although it started as a dare, she is surprised by how happy she feels when he says yes. His answer fills her with joy, but it also brings a wave of guilt. As they walk home together, she struggles to find the words to say. The growing sense of guilt weighs on her, making her anxious and silent. She worries about how cruel her actions might seem to him. Trying to break the silence, she decides to ask for his contact information. When they finally exchange details, they manage to say a word or two, but even that brief interaction makes her feel ecstatic, as if she is on cloud 9. Later, she arrives home still in a daze, filled with both joy and guilt. Once in her room, she lies on her bed and blushes, thinking about how cool Yushin is. Soon after, she receives messages from her friends, Hatsumi and Ayumi. She excitedly tells them that Yushin is the first boy she has added to her contact list and mentions that he only sent her a greeting. She looks at his profile and wonders if he likes girls with braids. Inspired, she decides to try braiding her hair. Suddenly, she messages him about walking to school together. His reply fills her with delight. She isn't sure if her feelings are genuine or if she is just caught up in the moment, but a mix of bewilderment, guilt, and happiness swirls inside her. Yushin arrives at the station an hour early, wanting to ensure he doesn't keep Nanami waiting. To his surprise, he finds her already there. He double-checks the time, wondering if he's late, but realizes she is early. He hurries over to her, apologizing profusely. He asks if he made her wait and if he got the wrong time. Nanami reassures him that he arrived earlier than she expected and explains that she had a small chore to take care of. She then happily greets him, saying good morning. Yushin blushes at her cheerful greeting, but remembers that her confession was part of a dare, so he tries not to forget that. He greets her back, and they start walking to school. Along the way, Nanami mentions how early he arrived. He admits this is his first time meeting a girl, so he was very nervous. She says, as expected, and tells him that due to his early arrival, they've been able to see each other sooner, and she's happy about that. Suddenly, she asks him to hold her hand. As they walk, Yushin notices her braided hair and wonders where he's seen that style before. Then he remembers Baron's advice to compliment any changes. Gathering his courage, he tells her the braided look suits her well. Hearing this, she beams with joy. She explains that she wanted to have this hairstyle for him. Confused, Yushin asks what she means. Nanami shows him his profile, revealing that her hairstyle matches the character in his profile picture. He feels desperate, but she quickly reassures him, saying it's not weird. She mentions that she also loves watching anime and movies. After calming his nerves, Yushin and Nanami continue strolling. Seeing him get nervous again, Nanami shyly asks if he would hold her hand on their way. Startled, Yushin asks if she really wants to do that. He starts wiping his hands, telling her it's not that he doesn't want to, and then squeezes her hand with his. Nanami laughs, realizing he's shaking her hand instead of holding it. They walk hand in hand, drawing attention from other students. With this, Yushin has achieved the goal Baron set for him on the very first day. Everyone starts whispering about them as they enter the school. Nanami leans in and laughs softly, telling Yushin that students are talking about them. He replies that they must feel sorry for her for having to deal with someone like him. Hearing this, she stops and turns back, saying that's not the reaction she wanted. She insists that he should stop calling himself someone and reminds him that he is her boyfriend, adding that he looked very cool yesterday. His heart races at her words, and he wonders if she is supposed to go that far for a punishment. Then she tells him they should have a relationship on equal terms. Yushin anticipates that she wants it to look like an ideal relationship, and he feels a bit nervous. He apologizes and agrees to her request, but she seems unhappy, so she apologizes too. He wonders what kind of expression she would have if he told her he knew about the punishment game. With a gulp, he lifts his fingers and playfully pokes her mouth, causing both of them to blush intensely as she starts to stammer. He quickly apologized, explaining that she asked him to be on equal terms, so he did it. He asks if it was unpleasant. She admits it wasn't, but that she was startled by it. Finally, they reach their classroom while still holding hands. Ayumi and Hatsumi greet them and congratulate Nanami. Other girls in the class start asking her why she is with Yushin. She proudly announces that she confessed to him yesterday, surprising everyone. As classmates gather around, Ayumi and Hatsumi disperse the crowd. Thanks to their help, Yushin calls them by their names and thanks them. Hearing this makes Nanami really angry because he just met her friends and is already calling them by their names, while he referred to her by her family name at the beginning. Hatsumi clarifies that Yushin might not know their family names yet. He immediately agrees, and Otofuke Hatsumi and Komanai Ayumi introduce themselves with their full names. He apologizes for calling them by their names, but they tell him he doesn't need to apologize. While everyone glances over at them, Nanami steps in and invites Yushin to have lunch together, revealing that she made a 2-person bento. He happily agrees to eat with her. He wonders if he misjudged how seriously she took the punishment, or at least that's how he feels. They head to the terrace where she shows him the bento. He asks if this is why she woke up early, and she confirms that he is right. He is grateful to her for going through all this trouble, which makes her very pleased. Even though he senses the gazes of others on him, he decides to dig into the food. He really enjoys the bento and compliments her, saying that even though the onigiri are small, they are cute and delicious. She reveals that she made them herself and that they are small because her hands are pretty small. He quickly finishes the bento and praises her cooking, saying it's really good. As Nanami acts comfortably around Yushin, he notices the jealous stares from the boys. Just as she is about to eat her bento, his stomach growls loudly. Realizing he is still hungry, she apologizes, saying her bento must not be enough for a boy. She decides to share some karage from her bento with him. He immediately opens his mouth to eat it, grateful for her generosity. Since he couldn't eat his fill at lunch, she invited him to buy another bento after school, suggesting it as an after-school date. This makes the jealous student's aura go wild with envy. After school ends, they head out to buy a bento for Yushin, their hands intertwined. He appears somewhat downcast. She notices and asks him about it. He responds that it's nothing. She then wonders if he doesn't want to hold hands with someone like her. In response, he clasps her hands with both of his. He reassures her, saying she is mistaken. He confirms with a warm smile that he is happy to be holding hands with her. She asks again if he's not forcing himself, but he quickly assures her that he doesn't need to. Her face lights up with happiness, and she says she's glad. When they reach the market, she picks out a bento for him. He comments that it's too cute for him. She smiles warmly and points they look like a newly couple. He blushes and agrees with a shy smile. She teases him, suggesting he doesn't need to force himself to agree. He replies that he genuinely feels happy and doesn't have to force himself at all. Hearing it makes her blush so hard that he starts tapping him. Then she selects a bento for him after getting his approval. She runs saying that she is going to buy it for him, but he stops her because he is going to use it, so he should be paying for it. But she declines and says that she wants to do something for the one she loves, so there's no reason for her to let him pay. But he still insists on paying for the bento box at least. She agrees. He buys the bento and finally hands it to her. She lights up with pleasure, saying it feels like he's giving her a present. His face flushes at her reaction. He regrets not mentioning that he knows about the punishment game. After buying the bento, they start walking out of the store. As they stroll, she asks what he'd like in his bento for tomorrow. He says he'd like a hamburger. She then inquires if he eats peppers. He explains that he dislikes foods with a strong smell. She agrees but reminds him that he once said he'd eat anything if it was her cooking. He realizes his previous reaction was positive and agrees with the statement. Her response fills him with genuine happiness. Later, he logs online and shares everything that happened with Baron and Peach. He also tells Baron that Nanami plans to call him tonight, but he missed the chance to mention that he knows about the punishment game. Baron is surprised by this development. According to him, Nanami no longer cares about the punishment game. He hadn't expected them to go to school together and hold hands within the same week. The most surprising thing is that she bought her homemade bento. Yushin worries if they are being used for their motivation, since the punishment game was meant for her to get used to being around boys. Baron explains that if a relationship starts because of a punishment game confession, it would feel businesslike. For example, she might get angry and tell him not to talk to her at school, claiming she was forced into the relationship. Baron assures Yushin that she would indeed say things that could make him anxious. Yushin disagrees, believing she's not like that. Baron acknowledges this and tells Yushin that he's already deeply in love with her, leaving him unable to change the situation. Suddenly, Peach's comment cuts through the conversation, and she tells Yushin that she thinks Nanami is just toying with him. She insists that he should break up with her. Baron tries to overlook Peach's point, but she remains adamant. Ignoring Peach, he asks Yushin if he thanked her for the meal. He admits that while he did say thanks, he wanted to cover the cost of the materials, but she refused. He expresses his desire to give her something in return. Baron suggests that he should give her some sweets, as returning the favor with something different would be a better gesture. Yushin agrees to give Nanami some sweets and decides to log out. Baron asks him to wait as he has completed his quest and now has another objective for him. Baron requests that Yushin ask Nanami out on a date for Saturday. Hearing this, he feels overwhelmed and thinks it's impossible. Baron encourages him, suggesting he could ask her to watch a movie as a way to thank her for the bento. Yushin agrees, feeling that he would otherwise feel guilty for not doing anything for her. He also realizes that he feels distant from her, as if he doesn't measure up. Determined to stay on equal footing, he resolves to ask her out, considering it part of the punishment game. Baron advises Yushin to ask Nanami about her hobbies to help choose the movie. He decides to ask her about her interests when he speaks to her on the phone. When she finally calls, she apologizes for the late call, explaining she got caught up in a conversation with a friend. He reassures her that it's okay, as he was also busy playing games. She asks if she has said anything odd, since it's her first time going out with a boy. He replies that he was also anxious, as it was his first time doing many things too. He admits he was scared but enjoyed everything they did together. To him, it feels like Nanami is right next to him, even through the phone. She shares that she felt like she was going around in circles, but he remained calm. He reassures her that's not the case and mentions he's been thinking about how to thank her. He then invites her to watch a movie with him this Saturday. She regrets declining, as she has already promised to watch a movie with her friends on Sunday. The rejection hits him like a bomb, as he realizes he chose the worst possible timing to invite her. He wonders what he should do, feeling that everything would be pointless if he didn't make another attempt. He decides to ask her out for Sunday instead and inquires if she is free then. She asks if this invitation is a thank you for the bento. He confirms it is. She responds by saying she'll put extra effort into his bento next time, which means she agrees to the date. He is thrilled by her response and expresses that he can't wait to learn about her likes tomorrow, assuring her it will be an amazing date. Nanami is deeply moved and pleased by his words. From Nanami's perspective, her heart raced during the call. It felt like Yushin is right next to her. Before ending the call, he says good night, Nanami, which makes her so happy that she starts rolling on her bed. She thinks she should stop to avoid getting too fluffy by tomorrow. She talks to herself about how Yushin noticed her haircut and blushed even more when she remembers him calling her cute. As she reflects on the lunch break when she gave him food from her bento, she realizes it was like an indirect kiss. The thought makes her even shyer. She envisions their future together and wonders if they might kiss soon. Her face grows redder as she muses about it. Suddenly, she notices the time and decides to start making the bento. She puts on her apron and happily thinks about Yushin as she prepares the food. She daydreams about future outings like going to the beach with him, but then recalls the punishment game. The thought of Yushin discovering that her feelings were part of the game makes her start crying. She feels scared and overwhelmed by the fear of how he will react. The next day, Yushin arrives at the station early, eager to walk to school with Nanami. He arrived 30 minutes earlier, hoping to astonish her. However, to his amazement, she arrived even earlier. With a playful boop on his cheek, she greets him, teasing that it is unfortunate because she was waiting for him. He returns her greeting, expressing surprise at her early arrival. She grins, reminding him that he surprised her the day before, so they are even now. Her playful spirit shines as she shares her reason for coming early. She wanted to see him declare, "I am late." As she chats, Yushin notices her new hairstyle. It seems she put in extra effort just for him. This thought gives him the courage to compliment her, saying the hairstyle looks cute. Though difficult for him, the words finally come out. Her face lights up with joy as she thanks him, offering him the privilege to hold her hand and share the bento she made. His heart swells with happiness at her words, and he gratefully accepts her offer. Together they walk to school, smiles bright on their faces. Meanwhile, at school, some girls discuss the upcoming captaincy for the basketball team. They praise the senior for his earlier match, and one girl hands him her water bottle. He accepts it with a nod and a thank you. However, while engaged in conversation, he catches sight of Nanami holding hands with Yushin. A wave of anger washes over him, causing him to grip the water bottle tightly until it cracks. A concerned girl asks if something is wrong, but he brushes it off, insisting everything is fine. Later, as they change their shoes, Yushin turns to Nanami, apologizing for the previous day. He explains that he called her without giving proper notice. She looks puzzled, prompting him to elaborate. He mentions that she isn't used to boys yet, but he was so excited about their upcoming date that his shyness faded, leading him to call her impulsively. She reassures him, saying it is okay. She confesses that she is still getting used to boys and admits they intimidate her a little. Yet she adds that his call made her genuinely happy. Her words resonate deeply, causing his heart to race. As they walk together, he wonders if her cheerful mood stems from his call. A sense of relief washes over him, knowing that reaching out to her brought her joy. She suddenly recalls that she never mentioned being unfamiliar with boys. This realization makes Yushin panic, as he indeed overheard her that day. She feels the need to find a way out of this awkward situation. He quickly comments that she mentioned yesterday was her first time going out with a boy. He assumed it might be because she was not used to boys, especially someone as adorable as Nanami. When he calls her cute, she blushes deeply. Overwhelmed by shyness, she hesitates for a moment. Yushin, sensing her discomfort, suggests they head up the stairs, and she agrees, feeling more at ease. As they climb the stairs, Yushin's mind races. He wonders why someone as charming as her isn't accustomed to boys. He glances at Nanami, contemplating that someone so cute should attract plenty of admirers. He speculates whether she might have had a negative experience with boys in the past. Perhaps her friends, concerned about her, chose him as a practice partner to help her. Noticing his deep contemplation, Nanami apologizes. She assures him it's not a big deal. She confesses that she has always had trouble with boys, though she struggles to recall the exact reason. Despite this, she insists it's not something to worry about. She explains that if she doesn't remember something, it must not have been very important to her. Yushin ponders the situation and asks, "Seriously?" "Yes," she nods, recalling how most boys in middle school were just plain mean to her, causing her to unknowingly develop some issues dealing with them. She admits that she first began to feel uneasy around boys back in 6th grade. Yushin muses that she must have been just as cute back then, which is why she gets so many admirers she can't even remember. He then inquires how she managed to read his mind. She retorts nonchalantly, pointing out that despite it only being 3 days, she is his girlfriend after all. He blushes, unsure how to react. He wonders if he should tell her that he was there that day and knows their whole relationship is just a punishment game. He absolutely can't let her know, he thinks. He can't help but notice Nanami's impressive assets that can drive any young man wild. She instantly notices his gaze and calls him a pervert, shielding herself consciously. He becomes flustered, apologizing profusely and insisting he meant no harm. "I really hate when guys stare at me," she says. He braces himself for her wrath, but she finishes the thought. "But it's okay if it's Yushin." She decides to forgive him this time. Yushin's heart races as her words hit him like an arrow. No more questions were asked that day, and he spent the rest of it in a blissful daze as time flew by. Now, during their lunch break, Nanami has brought him 2 hamburgers and asks if the portion is enough. More than enough, he assures her. She informs him that if he's still feeling hungry, he can simply open wide and she'll gladly feed him. The suggestion causes both of them to turn red. Just then, the basketball team captain approaches Nanami and inquires about the boy next to her. She responds with a question, asking Shibetsu's senpai if he isn't acting stubborn. Hearing this name, Yushin recalls that he's the captain of the basketball team, Shibetsu Shuimo, a well-known basketball player and a true Ikemen who confessed to Nanami but was rejected. He now questions Yushin's identity. Standing up, Yushin introduces himself as Nanami's boyfriend. Shuimo's towering presence intimidates him, but he stands his ground, feeling it's important to be brave for Nanami. Noticing the attention from other students, Yushin suggests moving to the cafeteria to talk. There, while Yushin eats, Shuimo asks if Nanami made the bento. He is about to ask for a bite, but before he can finish, Yushin quickly eats all the food. Shuimo's frustration grows. He only wanted a small taste. After finishing the meal, Yushin compliments Nanami's cooking. Shuimo, angered by their affectionate exchange, challenges Mitsumai-kun to a duel. If Shuimo wins, Mitsumai must give up Nanami. Yushin immediately refuses, stating he has no intention of doing so. Shuimo, with a cracking voice, accuses him of avoiding the challenge and sits down, questioning if a coward like him is suitable for Nanami. He turns to Nanami, asking if she agrees. Nanami promptly replies that she does not and tells Shuimo not to use her first name, stating that only Yushin has that privilege. Shuimo's anger flares as he interprets her words as a preference for Yushin over him. He calls Yushin pathetic for avoiding the challenge. Yushin counters, saying that using someone's girlfriend as a prize is wrong and that Nanami's feelings should come first. He also points out that Shuimo has already been rejected by her, making the duel unnecessary. Shuimo slams his hands on the table, insisting he doesn't need to be told this. Yushin remains silent and tells Shuimo that there is no benefit for him in this situation. He declares that even if Shuimo disapproves, he and Nanami will continue their relationship. He also criticizes Shuimo for treating her as an object, which is why he cannot agree to the duel. With the conversation reaching an impasse, both Nanami and Yushin prepared to leave. Shuimo interrupts again, questioning what she sees in Mitsumai-kun, claiming he is far less attractive than himself. She turns back and defends Yushin, insisting he is far better than him and stating she is done with boys like him. Her words hit him hard. She then reveals that Shuimo stared at her chest during his confession, unlike Yushin, who is completely different. This makes him fall to his knees. While Yushin regrets not making a follow-up statement, she dismisses Shuimo and tells Yushin it's time to go. Shuimo, still persistent, attempts to grab her, but Yushin intervenes, warning that continued persistence will only make her hate him. He starts to cry and begs Yushin to fight him, believing that Nanami will understand if he wins. Yushin reluctantly accepts the challenge, asking what kind of duel he wants. Shuimo, thrilled, suggests a best-of-10 three-pointer contest. Yushin, with limited basketball knowledge from Manga, agrees, knowing he has no other choice. Nanami is surprised by his acceptance and asks if he is okay with the duel. He reassures her, explaining that Shuimo's objectification of her has made him very angry. Concerned for Yushin's potential loss, Nanami blushes and decides to trust him. He agrees to the duel but requests 3 handicaps for himself, given his beginner status. Shuimo, confident in his abilities, agrees, believing he cannot lose. Later, at the basketball court, Hatsumi and Ayumi arrive, drawn by the commotion in the gym. They wonder what's happening. Nanami is about to explain when the girls spot Shuimo in his basketball attire and start shouting in surprise. Yushin, having changed into his own sports clothes, catches Nanami's eye. She looks at him with a pleased smile. Shuimo approaches her, confidently declaring that he will definitely win. Ignoring him, she steps closer to Yushin. This gesture causes Shuimo to start sobbing in frustration. Ayumi and Hatsumi tell Senpai not to be sad. They approach Yushin asking about his appearance and whether he plans to join the basketball club. He clarifies that this isn't the case. The girls gaze at his well-toned physique and compliment him, inquiring if he does regular workouts. Yushin, feeling embarrassed, admits that he works out occasionally. Nanami, noticing the girls' intense focus on him, pouts and playfully chides them for staring too much. Her friends burst into laughter, teasing Nanami that no one is going to steal Yushin away from her. They then turn to Yushin, asking what's going on. He explains that Shuimo's senpai challenged him to a basketball match with Nanami as the prize. The girls are shocked by this revelation, particularly that he chose basketball. Hatsumi, curious, asks how Yushin plans to win. He replies that they have agreed on giving senpai 3 handicaps. Shuimo will first demonstrate his skills by letting Yushin watch 20 of his shots. As he shoots, Shuimo explains the technique. For a 3-pointer, the ball should stay close to the abdomen or chest. Yushin asks if the ball shouldn't be held above the head, and Shuimo clarifies that for a long-distance shot, too much power isn't needed. The key is to keep the hips steady. Shuimo easily makes each shot, showing Yushin the proper form and technique. After 20 throws, Yushin is exhausted just from watching. The rules for their duel are set. Since it's Yushin's first time attempting a 3-pointer, he only needs to make 1 successful shot to win. However, if Shuimo's senpai scores more than 8 times, he will win the challenge. Hatsumi and Ayumi discuss the challenge, noting that tiring Shuimo out is a useful handicap but might not be enough to guarantee Yushin's victory. He acknowledges this and clarifies that the 3rd handicap is crucial. Regardless of the match's outcome, Nanami will have the final say in determining the winner. Curious, Hatsumi and Ayumi ask if Shuimo is okay with this arrangement. Yushin responds that Shuimo agreed with the condition, even saying, "Let her choose me," before getting his consent. This comment makes the girls laugh, as they find it amusing that Shuimo believes Nanami would choose him if he wins. Hatsumi remarks that without basketball, Shuimo is just a big fool. Yushin expresses that he would be upset if Nanami's own choice was disregarded, so he used the final handicap to ensure her decision mattered. He fears that if Nanami chooses Shuimo senpai, it will all be for nothing. Glancing at her, he wonders if everything will be alright. The match begins, and Yushin picks up the ball, preparing for his throw. Shuimo, full of confidence, boasts that Nanami will choose him if he wins. Yushin ignores the taunts, feeling uneasy but determined to look cool. He takes a deep breath, jumps, and makes the shot. He breathes a sigh of relief. He only needed to score once to win. Nanami, seeing Yushin score, cheers loudly, calling him cool and proclaiming her love. This display infuriates Shuimo. Yushin, now with another opportunity to score, is momentarily distracted by Nanami's words. Flustered, he misses his next attempts. Despite his efforts, he fails to score again, but manages to maintain his composure. On the other hand, Shuimo easily scores 8 times, leading to a tie. Yushin is impressed by Shuimo's basketball skills and wonders how Nanami will view him now. Before he can dwell on it, she runs to Yushin, hugs him, and reaffirms her choice. Her words devastate Shuimo, leaving him feeling as if his world has shattered. Yushin seizes the moment and asks Shuimo if he now acknowledges Nanami as his girlfriend. Shuimo starts to sob, overwhelmed by frustration. When school ends, Yushin heads home and shares the story with his friends. Baron laughs upon hearing the details, surprised that Shuimo accepted defeat. He questions if the handicaps were fair, noting that if Nanami was making the final decision, the contest seemed unnecessary. Yushin is relieved that Shuimo accepted his loss and grateful that Nanami's choice was respected. Baron comments that Nanami wouldn't be swayed by Shuimo because it's clear that both Yushin and Nanami love each other. Yushin asks Baron to elaborate, admitting he would be overjoyed if that were truly the case. Peach expresses her doubts about Nanami's feelings for Yushin, insisting that she is likely just toying with him. She mentions that girls often enjoy playing with boys' emotions, laughing at them behind their backs while having fun with their friends. He appreciates her concern but firmly believes that his girlfriend is not the bad person she suggests. Hearing this, Peach feels a little sad and quietly mutters, "Excuse me." He quickly reassures her, saying thanks as he has managed to cool off a bit. He acknowledges that he may have been too conceited and decides he needs to put in even more effort to show his love for her girlfriend. Peach's heart sinks at his words, feeling a sense of heartbreak. She stands up, stating that she is done for the day and logs out, leaving Yushin with a mix of emotions as he contemplates their conversation. Baron asks Yushin what's up with Peach, and he replies that he must have said something that rubbed her the wrong way. Baron advises him to log out early since his date is coming up soon. Yushin acknowledges this and mentions that he needs to ask Nanami at school tomorrow. As soon as he logs out, a message from her pops up. He opens the chat and reads her question. Would a kiss on the cheek be an acceptable reward for today? His face turns bright red. Happiness floods through him at her message, but his heart races, overwhelmed by the excitement of her words. Meanwhile, she enjoys a relaxing bath, taking her time to wash herself while thoughts of Yushin swirl in her mind. In a moment of spontaneity, she expresses a desire to see his reaction to her feelings. She loves how he responds to her, and the thought brings a smile to her face. As she applies soap, she muses that Shuimo could learn a thing or two from Yushin. Shuimo is often too true to his desires and never listens to others. This thought irritates her, especially since Shuimo interrupted one of their rare moments together. She feels frustrated that he has no right to judge Yushin, who treats her with kindness. After washing her body, she sinks into the warm water of the bathtub, her thoughts drifting to Yushin. She compares him to Shuimo, realizing that Yushin is far kinder and gentler. He genuinely cares about her, which brings a smile to her face. Yet a nagging thought crosses her mind. Does Yushin want to flirt? She recalls his earlier response in their conversation, making her wonder if there's more to his intentions. As she relaxes in the water, memories of the cool things Yushin said at school resurface. She thinks he must be embarrassed, and her heart races at the thought of him. Just thinking about him makes her feel warm inside, as if her heart is boiling with excitement. Then a playful idea pops into her head. What if tomorrow he asks for a reward? She imagines him tugging at her cheek, saying he doesn't want a reward on the cheek but elsewhere. Nanami blushes at the thought of the situation, stammering that things are moving too fast. She had only intended for a kiss on the cheek. Just then, her sister Saya opens the bathroom door, teasingly suggesting that if Nanami likes cheeks so much, maybe she should pinch hers. Flustered, she asks her sister to leave. Saya agrees and closes the door behind her. Once alone, Nanami reflects on how she can't help but smile. After all, starting tomorrow, they will finally be able to spend time together without anyone bothering them. The next day at school, Shuimo approaches them again. He waves at them, offering a compliment and expressing envy over their close relationship. Nanami, frustrated, feels that everything was settled the day before. She tells Shuimo to leave them alone and starts to walk away, urging Yushin to follow her. However, Yushin decides to stay and tells Shuimo that he wants to hear what he has to say. He thanks Yushin and reassures Nanami that he's there to discuss something important with Yushin, not to cause trouble. She is taken aback, but notices that Shuimo seems sincere. Yushin asks Shuimo what he wants, considering their match is over. He feels it's odd for Shuimo to seek him out now. Shuimo, however, insists that Yushin shouldn't sound so isolated. He explains that despite the handicaps, Yushin won the match, proving himself worthy of Nanami. Shuimo admits he respects Yushin and wants to be friends. This revelation surprises both Nanami and Yushin. Yushin, puzzled, whispers to her that he didn't expect this outcome if he won. Shuimo, appearing innocent, adds that if they become friends, there's a chance Nanami and he might grow closer. Hearing the suggestion, she leans in close to Yushin's ear and whispers that her friends have said Shuimo excels only in basketball and is quite lacking in other areas. She adds that his popularity stems from his ability to appeal to maternal instincts. The closeness of her whisper makes Yushin tremble and blush. She suddenly realizes how bold her actions were. Yushin, still blushing, asks if Shuimo is trying to appeal to her maternal instincts as well. She quickly shakes her head and denies it. She explains that all Shuimo did was peek at her chest during the proposal and that his gaze was quite inappropriate. Shuimo, overhearing their conversation, clears his throat loudly to regain their attention. He resumes his proposal, asking Yushin once more if he will be his friend. Yushin agrees, but with one condition. He firmly holds Nanami's hand and declares that he will never hand her over to Shuimo. Shuimo starts laughing, clearly entertained. He praises their compatibility, then dramatically turns his face toward the window, as if resigning to the situation. He acknowledges that it's time for him to search for his next love. She is taken aback by Shumo's reaction. She hadn't expected him to give up so easily, and this shift in behavior makes her reconsider her initial impression of him. She begins to think that he might actually be a good guy after all. After the conversation, Shumo asks Yushin if he would like to join his basketball club. Nanami grows concerned. She is happy for Yushin's efforts being recognized but worries that if he joins the club, their time together might decrease. Yushin, having the same concern, declines the offer. He explains that he doesn't want to reduce the time he can spend with Nanami, who feels a surge of happiness, relieved that Yushin shares her feelings. Shuimo, acknowledging their decision, expresses his disappointment but assures Yushin that he can always reach out online if he changes his mind. He thanks Shuimo-senpai, who then leaves them to enjoy their time together. Nanami turns around and, relieved to be alone with Yushin, mentions that he might have preferred staying with Shuimo. Yushin apologizes, assuring her that he never intended to make her feel uneasy. Nanami responds that she simply wanted to be with him. Summoning his courage, he reassures her that if anyone tries to take her away, he will make sure to stop them. Nanami laughs, noticing his bright red face, and teases him about his embarrassment. Yushin, seeing her flushed cheeks, asks if she is also feeling shy. She admits that she is indeed embarrassed, explaining that it's because her boyfriend is saying such cool things. She adds that no woman could help but feel happy with such heartfelt words. Nanami grabs Yushin's arms and tells him that it's a reward for his coolness yesterday and today. She adds, however, that they won't be able to see each other tomorrow. Yushin recalls that Nanami and her friends are going to watch a movie, so he tells her to enjoy herself. She seems less thrilled about it, feeling that Yushin might be looking forward to their time together. She expresses concern that he might feel lonely without her. Yushin reassures her that while he might miss her tomorrow, he will patiently look forward to their time on Sunday. She is delighted by his response. She thanks him and promises to send him plenty of messages throughout the day. Both of them feel a warm sense of anticipation for their next meeting. Yushin makes a mistake during his quest. Baron notices this unusual error and inquires if anything is wrong. Standing up, Yushin admits his clumsiness. Tomorrow marks his first date, and his mind is preoccupied with thoughts about it. Peach, hearing this, advises him to be careful. Her supportive words catch him off guard. It strikes him as the first time Peach has shown genuine concern for him. He feels anxious, hearing her next comment. She insists that they will crush his heart tomorrow, calling him dull and uninterested, among other things. Baron quickly intervenes, urging her to stop with such negativity. Yushin begins to sweat, feeling the weight of her comments. He reassures them that everything is ready for the date. There's a hint of determination in his voice, despite the rising tension. Baron offers a comforting pat on Yushin's back. He encourages him to let go of the worries about the game. The focus should be on enjoying himself. This simple advice helps Yushin breathe a little easier, reminding him that the date should be fun, despite the looming doubts. Baron offers a crucial piece of advice. Escorting Nanami properly will boost Yushin's favorability. He believes Yushin has already reached the maximum level of charm. However, he wonders if he is truly happy just being with Nanami. Doubts creep in. She might not feel the same way. Caution is necessary for this date. Baron then asks about the outfit he plans to wear on this important day. Yushin realizes he hasn't given it much thought. Suddenly, he feels a wave of uncertainty. What kind of clothes should he wear? The question lingers in his mind, adding to his anxiety as he prepares for the date. He admits that most of his wardrobe consists of black clothing, with only a few comfortable trousers and jeans. Baron and Peach exchange concerned glances, realizing the gravity of the situation. Baron suggests that Yushin take a photo of his planned outfit for tomorrow and send it to their friend, Shuimo, for advice. Yushin agrees and immediately calls Shuimo-senpai, inquiring if he is available, to which Shuimo enthusiastically replies that he is glad Yushin is seeking his help. He inquires about Yushin's needs. Yushin asks if he can show him the clothes he plans to wear for his date tomorrow. Shuimo finds it incredible that Yushin is relying on him for such advice, but agrees to take a look since he is on break. Yushin apologizes, not wanting to bother him. Shuimo reassures him that it's no trouble, though he admits he isn't a fashion expert either. After sending the picture, Shuimo's frustration is palpable. He exclaims, "Why are you covered in pitch black? Everything is black. Inside, outside, it looks like the outfit of a serial killer or a ninja." Realizing that all of Yushin's clothes are similar, Shuimo urges him to buy something new. Yushin heads to the station, already expecting criticism but feeling even worse about his outfit after Shumo's reaction. He is relieved that Baron and Peach noticed the issue and advised him to consult Shumo. As he walks, guilt washes over him. He feels he has let Baron down and becomes increasingly aware of others' opinions. With no time to waste, he reaches the market, hoping to scout for clothes before the date. Unfortunately, he now faces a significant disadvantage. Taking a lift to the clothing area, he suddenly experiences déjà vu, thinking he spotted Nanami. However, he dismisses it as mere imagination and continues on his quest for the perfect outfit. He begins searching for clothes, expecting that buying them separately would be cheaper. To his dismay, he discovers that ensembles are even more expensive. Without a part-time job, spending this much money feels painful, but he knows he must do it for his date. Regret washes over him for not having a job, and he recalls that Nanami also doesn't work part-time. He imagines how wonderful it would be to work together with her, sharing laughs and experiences. However, he quickly admits that if they worked together, he would likely make mistakes while trying to focus on her. As he continues to browse, the reality of his situation sinks in. He needs to find something suitable, but the pressure of his finances looms large. He selects some clothes and heads to the changing room to try them on. Following Shumo's advice, he keeps the black skinny jeans and focuses on finding a refreshing top. After changing into a new shirt, he sends a picture to Senpai, who approves of the updated look. As he changes back into his original outfit, Yushin can't help but think that a trip to the zoo would have been more enjoyable than this shopping excursion. However, with the clothes purchased, he is now fully prepared for his date tomorrow. Upon leaving the changing room, Yushin hears a familiar voice. To his surprise, it belongs to Otofuke and Kamone-san, who are sporting bold, eye-catching outfits. He wonders why they are here since they were supposed to watch a movie today. He notices Hatsumi trying to brush off some boys who are hitting on them, but the boys remain persistent, inviting the girls to join them for some fun. As Yushin watches the scene unfold, he thinks it's no surprise that they attract attention with their flashy outfits. The boys insist that their boyfriends won't find out about this encounter, but Hatsumi counters that it's not about being discovered. Despite her rejection, the boys continue to press, highlighting that it's perfect since both groups consist of 3. Suddenly, Yushin recalls that if they are here, then Nanami must also be around. He looks past them and spots a girl. Curiosity piques, he wonders who she is, feeling a mix of anticipation and uncertainty.